Hi everyone, this is Sue Reynolds. Welcome to the Redesigning School Counseling webinar for steering team members. And in this webinar, we will be discussing prepping for your second council meeting on vision. Couple of things that we wanted to talk about. It was, first of all, the agenda. I do want to go over Instagram with you real quickly. We've had a couple of our other initiatives where our schools have started to use Instagram widely, and it's really been helpful both for our staff and also for schools to kind of see what each other are doing. So I want to go over Instagram with you. The survey is now open for schools that did not survey for last spring, so I'll cover that very quickly. I want to hear a little bit about how your first meetings with your council went. And then we'll dig into prepping for the second council meeting on vision. So let's kind of look at Instagram. I just did a quick check before we started the webinar, and I think we've got 2 schools that are participating in Redesigning School Counseling that have Instagram accounts and that are active. But let me show the rest of you how easy this is to do. First of all, when you're setting up an Instagram account, I always like to do it on my laptop. I just think it's easier there. So we go to Instagram.com. You fill in your email address, your first and last name. You select a username, which most schools have done your school name, then the letters RSC after it. And then you select a password, and then you just click sign up. So it is that simple. When you do that, it's going to ask you if you want to add a photo for your profile. What a lot of schools have done is just taken our logo and put their school's name at the top of it, and then kind of done a snapshot of it. And then use that as their profile photo, but you can use anything that you want. Once you have your account set up, then what we would suggest that you do is go to the search button and type in student.achievement.institute. And when you do that, a lot of different organizations that have those words in their username will pop up. Ours will probably be the first one, and you're looking for our logo. And when you go there, just click on that, and that will bring up our account. And then we'd really love it if you would just follow us. That will make all of our posts appear in your feed. And then we will follow you back, which is wonderful because then all of your posts will appear in our feed. So, okay. Now, in terms of posting, so once your account is set up, posting to Instagram is so easy. I would suggest that just you make it one of your steering team members' responsibility during the meeting to just take a couple photos. And then on your phone, you would download the Instagram app, then log in. And then once you're logged in, you just click this little plus sign, and that'll bring up all of your recent photos. You select the photo that you want to hit, and then go to the next slide. And then on here, you'll add a caption, and then click on share right there, and that's it. So remember, in Instagram, it's not like Facebook where you're putting up a whole paragraph. You're just putting a caption on your photo. So, and then in your caption, if you include hashtag Redesigning School Counseling, that will make your photos go into like a folder of all of the photos that have that hashtag attached to them. So let me show you real quickly what that looks like. I'm going to go live now to Instagram, and I'm logged in as Ase. So I'm just going to do hashtag redesigning school counseling, and then did hit repeat or return, and my computer's being real slow. There we go. And we can see here that several schools in Redesigning School Counseling have posted their events already. And if let's just click on this one and see what there's the photo. This is from Spartan Counselors. which I'm not sure, so you can see why it helps to put your school's name in the username, because it's hard, without that it's hard to know who we're looking at. I have a feeling this is Southwestern because they are the Southwestern Spartans. But you can see, you know, our first redesigning school counseling meeting was a huge success. If I want to see what other photos they've posted, I can just click on their name, and right now that they have one. But look at, they have 19 people following their posts. So my guess is that those are their council members. So they can, you know, kind of keep their members engaged by doing their by posting their photos. Then I also wanted to show you there's another initiative that we're doing that's very similar to Guiding All Kids, or to Redesigning School Counseling. It's called Guiding All Kids. They're have the same steps and the same timeline that you have for this year. So I'm just going to click in Guiding All Kids and go there. And here's what that group of schools posted. We're meeting with those schools face-to-face, so it's a little different than you. But when we look at their council meetings, you know, we can see their photos look very much like yours. Matter of fact, they're exactly the same as yours. So there's a couple of these photos I wanted to show you that I thought were cool. One that I really, really liked is, here is this photo here of this photo, obviously, of a student talking to adults. I'm going to click on that photo. And what I love about that photo is see how engaged those adults are in listening to that student. So, and I can see that this is Riverside School, and so they've used Riverside GAC as their username. And if I click on their username, I can see that here's you know, a lot of different photos that they've taken that they've posted. And here's one that instead of writing all the responses to the brainstorm questions down that people have said, they did a little differently. And I'm just kind of guessing here, but my guess is they asked people to record the responses on a piece of sticky note paper, and then they brought those up and put them on the poster and then talked about them. So lots of different ways. I mean, you can see, you know, a large meeting, everybody's looking at the front, engaged. Just a lot of kind of cool things going on with this. So you can get lots of different ideas from looking at these photos. Another one that jumped out at us, let me see if I can find this one real quickly. I just thought was really, yeah, I love this woman with all of the sticky notes hanging from her. And again, I'm kind of reading between the lines here, but I'm guessing what happened at their first council meeting was that as they talked about what perspective they brought to the table, you can see one of these sticky notes says parent. I can't quite read the other, but I think that they, you know, put their perspectives on their bodies. So then if I click on Scott County, you know, I can see that they've also have uploaded several photos, so it's kind of cool to see what they're doing. Another large council, and then, you know, here's another member with sticky notes all over them. So I just think it's kind of fun. It just, you know, shows me that they're having really fun with their meetings. So I really encourage you to begin using Instagram. We're going to ask you to do that again after the second council meeting. But it has been really fun and has shown our staff, since we're not there in your buildings during your meetings, you've been able to show our staffs our staff members what's going on, and that has been like majorly cool for us. So as well as a great idea for schools to share ideas with other schools. And two, you could take a picture of a document and upload it. It doesn't have to be a picture of people. Okay. So that's Instagram. And let's go on to the next slide. I think I went through all that. Okay, want to talk quickly about the survey. We know that some schools gave the survey last spring as part of the planning phase for Lily, before you started RSC. So if you gave the survey last spring, you would not give it again. But most of the schools that are listening today did not give the survey. And so I just want to highlight a little bit about that survey. First of all, why are we giving that survey? Well, that survey really is going to inform 3 different parts of this process. When we talk about expanding resources in a future meeting, we're going to be looking at ideal time use balance. And before your council has an opinion on that, we want to say to them, here are the needs that the counseling needs that your kids have versus the guidance needs. So they can kind of like balance that out and think about that when they're coming up with the ideal percentage of time that your counselors would spend in counseling versus guidance. When we get to your priority goals, we're going to ask your council to look at the importance of the student choice coupled with the percentage of kids that are currently making that choice. And then based on that information, they'll look at their priority goals. So we'll want to bring in the data from the plans and choice questions into that discussion. And then later, when we look at the root causes to figure out why students aren't making those choices, we're going to want to know, what do kids need? What knowledge do they need? What personal social issues are they bringing to the table? Is it that they aren't feeling comfortable with their counselor? So we'll be looking at all of these bits of data that can help us understand why kids aren't making those choices. So it's really important to give this survey. It's not just something that's going to sit on the shelf. There are 3 different times in the future, 3 different months, where we're going to be bringing this survey data back into the discussion. Okay, so who takes the survey? Students in grades K2 will take a teacher-read survey, and students in grade 3-12 will take an online survey. And our expectation is that you survey at least 95% of the students. We'll show you a really easy way to do that. If you cannot do that, our very minimum would be at least 30 students per grade level. But our fear with that is that you're going to miss some of the student group breakdowns that really help to target where your students' needs are, because we won't have enough students that are free and reduced or that are Hispanic or whatever student group in order to report that data to you. So the other reason for surveying all the students in your building is that later, if there is survey data that's disturbing to people, what often they'll want to say is, oh, well, you didn't survey all the kids, the survey must not have been random. So, and if you can come back and say, yeah, but we surveyed 98% of the kids, so I don't think that was the issue. It really helps to address some of the resistance that may come up when folks are not comfortable with the survey results in terms of the students' social personal needs or their guidance, career needs or academic needs. So, okay, it's just really helpful to survey all the kids. In terms of who administers the survey, we suggest that you ask each of your teachers to administer, say if you're in a middle school or a high school, just ask your second period teachers to survey the students in their second period class. If every second period teacher does that between now and the end of the survey deadline, survey window, you would have surveyed every student in the building. Even in elementary school, if you could ask all your fourth grader teachers, please survey all your students sometime between now and the end of the survey window. That can, that way you could survey all the kids in the building in a very easy way for the counselors, because we're sharing the survey administration responsibility. So the survey window then is, as I just mentioned, it's open now, and it will be open until February 16th. So you have about, 6 weeks to give the survey. Not all students have to take it at the same time. Your fourth grade students could take it next week. Your sixth grade students could take it, 3 weeks from now. Same thing in your in the high schools. Maybe that some of the second period teachers or seventh period teachers, whatever period you pick, some of those teachers are going to give it right now, and others are going to give it, closer to the deadline. Now, that said, the closer you can get that survey to February 16th, the better off you're going to be, because in that survey, we ask students, did you do this year? Did you do this year? So we're basically asking them to identify the choices that they've made in this school year. And so if you can back up that survey as long as possible, as far as you can, then you've got a broader time period that students would be able to participate in your activities and answer yes to some of the questions. If you gave the survey last year, then we know you gave the survey probably in April or May, and you were able to capture the whole year from the previous year. So if you gave it the survey last year, not a worry. If you're giving the survey this year, we want to back that question up as far as we can. Okay. In terms of setting up the survey, in the process page in section 3, collect data, step 9, there is a video there that you can watch that shows you exactly how to set up the survey. Also, there's a couple of new things since we talked with you last. We wanted to make you aware that we have given you a list of all of the survey questions K-12, and on that document it shows you which grade levels have gotten each of the questions. And then we also have given you a document that goes through each grade level in terms of how much time we anticipate it's going to take students to take the survey in that grade level. So, okay. In terms of the student view, when the students log in, they're going to see a page that looks like this. They're going to first enter a code that you give them. When you set up the survey, our system will give you the codes that you'll share with the kids. Then the kids will be asked to tell information about themselves. Their names, their parents' names, their email addresses, their cell phone numbers. It's contact information for them. Then we ask the students to give their demographics, and finally we go into the questions. But before I do that, whoops, I just want to make sure I'm telling you this right. Yeah, they put in their code, then they get about you, then they, no, I am missing a slide there. Let me get that and put that in there real quickly so I can do that in order. Sorry about that. Oh, I guess I took it out altogether. Okay, well, let me just tell you about it. So, great slide. So the students put in their code, then they answer questions about them. Then the next screen is going to ask them to describe their demographics, their race, ethnicity, if they're a boy or a girl, if they are free and reduced lunch. All of those questions, there's the answer, prefer not to answer. So we're asking them their demographics, and then we take them to the student questions. So you can see how quickly students can work through these questions. You know, what do you plan to do during the first year of high school? What type of high school diploma do you expect to receive? Did you create or update an Indiana high school graduation plan this year? And you can see for almost all of the questions, it's just real quick, yes, no, or not sure. In our observation of how long it takes students to do this type of survey, it's like 5 to 10 seconds per question. So it's going to go very, very fast. Students just read the question, then yes, no, or they're not sure. In terms of how long it will take for the surveys, this is what we're expecting, based on a 15-second per survey item allotment. So you can see the longest survey is the 8th grade survey. There's 182 questions on that. Kids will go through very quickly, yes, no, not sure. And we're anticipating for that longest survey it would take about 45 minutes. And then you can see that the elementary surveys are much shorter, and then as you move on in high school, those surveys are shorter as well. So in terms of time allotment, we just wanted to give you a heads up on how many questions were on each survey and how long we think that survey will take. We have tried to shorten the survey, but we think that every single survey question is something that you're going to want to know. So we decided to keep the survey at the length that it is, and just knowing that students will be able to work through that survey very quickly. Okay, and then finally, just kind of a heads up reminder that this survey is really 2 back-to-back surveys. So but to the kids, it looks like 1 survey. So in survey 1, we ask the kids for their contact information, their demographics, we ask them the plans and choice questions, and the guidance needs questions. Then they go right into survey 2. They don't realize they're starting a second survey, and we ask the demographics again because we're into really another survey. It may freak the kids out a little bit that they're being asked the demographics again. You can just tell them that that's for confidentiality purposes. And you can see that we keep it as 2 surveys because we don't want the student contact information to be in any way associated with counseling needs and the perception of their counselor. But we do want the demographics to be associated with those things. So that's why we have to ask the demographic questions again. So I know you'll get that question from some of the kids. They'll say, is something broken? I'm being asked the same questions again. And we can just tell them that's for confidentiality purposes. Yes, it's supposed to be like that. Just answer those questions again. So, okay. And keep in mind, it's 2 surveys back to back. Okay, in terms of the reading level, sometimes we get questions about that. It is okay for whoever is administering the survey to read the questions to the students. It's also okay to explain the terms used in the survey. You may not in-house call your graduation plan a graduation plan. You may have a different name for it. So it would be okay to explain to the students when the survey says graduation plan, we in-house call that a 4-year high school course plan or whatever you call it. So, okay. So, yeah, so that's it on survey. Before we go on, I'm going to see if we have any questions, and if you'll type questions in about the survey, and see if we have any questions.
Yes, Sue?
Yes, Debbie.
Christy asks, we have a high population of EL students that have a lot of difficulty on the About You page. Any suggestions for lower level students or EL SPED that do not know this info? It's very time consuming to print reports and read it off to the students.
Yeah, that would be really my only suggestion. We have had a lot of schools do that. Not a lot, but schools have told us that they've done that they've read the questions to students, especially in the lower elementary grades, like grades 3 and 4. Yeah, does anybody else who's already given the survey have any suggestions? If you do, please type them in. But yeah, other than reading the questions to the students, that's I think the only thing that I can think of. Yeah.
She said, for example, some of them don't even know their address.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm kind of reading Christy's comments too, as she's commenting that it's not so much the questions themselves, it's just that the kids don't know the answers. I guess why don't you give Debbie a call and we can kind of brainstorm that with you. Off the top of my head, I can't remember which questions you're allowed to skip and which ones are required. So it might be that you're just allowed to skip some of those demographic questions. But I think name and email you cannot skip, but I'm thinking that maybe you can. But give Debbie a call and we can brainstorm and troubleshoot that with you. Okay, any other questions? Good question, by the way. That was a really good question.
No, that's all so far.
Okay, thanks, Debbie. Okay, so what I'd like to do is to just talk about your first council meetings. I have 2 polls that I'd like to launch real quickly. And the first 2 questions are, how many council members attended your first meeting? And how engaged were the council members at that first meeting? So let's launch the first question, if I can remember how to do this. Okay, how many council members attended? And I'm launching. Okay, Debbie, did that pop up on your screen?
Yes.
Okay, if everybody can kind of weigh in there, for your first council meeting, approximately how many members did you have? And good, about a third of you have voted so far. And 40% of you have voted. Nope. And we're coming to, okay. So it looks like about, I'm going to close the poll. And so, Debbie, I don't see what you're seeing. You're seeing the results on your screen, correct?
Nope, I'm seeing your number 3 first council meeting slide.
Okay, here we go. I forgot to share. There, now you seeing them?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. So it looks like about half of you, a little over half of you have already had the first council meeting. That's good. And you had full council meetings. I'm really happy to see that. So 20 plus, that's wonderful. I bet you had lots of different perspectives at the table, and that is super. So about half of you have not had your first council meeting yet, and I'm assuming that you're about to, so that's a good thing. So, okay, so everybody voted on that one. Wonderful. Thank you for participating. And now let's go to that second question. And I'll hide that one. Okay, so now, for those of you who had your first meetings, how engaged were your council members? And again, at this first meeting, it's a lot of us just sharing information. The engagement would come at the end when you were doing the benefits brainstorm. So yeah, so if you could kind of let us know you've not had your first meeting, or what was the level of engagement. So 55% of you have voted. Waiting for everybody to vote. Give you another couple seconds. Looks like we might have one more person. Okay, okay. So I'm going to close this poll. Wonderful. Okay, so and then we'll share those results. Good. This is also good news. So about a fourth of you or fifth of you said that you estimated that your council members were extremely engaged. That is really good to hear. The rest of you who had meetings said that they were very engaged. So that's, you know, on the upper side of positives. So I'm pleased with that. And kudos to you, because I know that to have an engaged group, that you have to have an engaging presenter. And my guess was that for your group to be engaged, you were that. So that is really, really good to hear, and good feedback. And then the next question, let me hide this. The next question then is, in terms of your next meeting, for those of you who had your first meeting, what would you do differently next time? And if you can just type that into the chat box, and that would especially be very helpful to the schools that have not had this meeting yet. That would be great. And then we're going to move right on into our next meeting. So what would you do differently next time, based on what you learned from the first meeting? Or let me ask it this way too. What did you do well at the first meeting that you want to make sure that you do again? So we'll wait for some teams to type in. Again, you're typing into the questions box, chat box, and just, okay, you guys will do polls, but you're not being very chatty right now. Any suggestions, tips, things you would do differently? Here's one comment coming from Jill Hessel. I found that some of the best conversations were those that included students. Oh, interesting, Jill. I plan to try to add more students to my meeting going forward. Very interesting. Good. Good to know. Jill, can you answer back and let us know what grade level those students were in? Can you type that in? Curious. Actually, let me see if I can just... Jill, I just unmuted you. Can you hear me? don't know if Jill has a speaker on her phone, on her computer. Guess not. Okay, let me mute her again. But she's saying that she had middle level students, and it was the 8th graders that participated, and she also had a high school senior, so one of her graduates. That's great. Cool. Christy Vance is saying that she might think of some ways to encourage discussion. The group was a bit quiet at the start. I'm going to give you an idea for that today. Christy, I think might help a little bit. Andrew Hoover is saying we look forward to interacting more with the council. I also think they are eager to participate more. Absolutely. So yeah, that first meeting we do a lot of talking. There will be a lot of participation in this meeting. And then Samantha Browning is saying that they broke into small groups for the benefits and perspectives. It was a great discussion. However, we might need to have some more time for thoughts to be shared. Yeah, that's always kind of an interesting challenge. I'm going to talk with you a little bit today about how to do part of the meeting actually before you get to the meeting, which would give you more time for discussion. So that's good. It's always a good sign when there's not enough time for discussion. It sounds like you had a really engaged group. So, okay. So let's then go into our preparing for this month's meeting with the council, where we're talking about vision. And I'm just going to go through the slides real quickly, and then we'll go online and look at all the resources. Okay. So here we are. So we're talking about this month and looking at visioning. So we'll start with a review. We're reminding people that the focus of RSC is to improve students' academic achievement, social emotional health, and productivity in a global economy. And we're doing that by helping students make sound choices in areas that impact high achievement. Then we're going through again the school counseling pyramid. And we're reminding folks on this slide that we're building a foundation. We started out with a benefit statement. This month we're going to work on our vision statement, but then next month we'll start on goals, and then priority goals, and then root causes, and then exploring possible activities, and then picking activities to implement next school year. So the agenda for today is to talk about vision. And we're defining vision up front. It's a description of the ideal state. It's a picture of what adults, students, and academic achievement would be like if all of our dreams came true. So we want to kind of define vision in the very beginning and really give people a sense that it's lofty. Then we also want to talk about that there's practical reasons for this dreaming or this visioning. Visioning focuses us on students and adult learners. It is good for raising expectations. It provides a common purpose and a common direction for your whole council. It creates energy for change. It focuses on the future, and I love focusing on the future because then no one can point fingers at each other to blame people for things that have happened in the past if we're always talking about the future. And it's the foundation for decision making. So I like to think of it like this. Once you have your vision, then all we're doing is thinking about what can each person do to help you move closer to your vision. In order to get closer to that vision, what goals do we need? What activities do we need? What's getting in the way? And what can we each do to help us move closer to that vision, to that dream? So coming up with this common dream or common vision is really important to the process. So the agenda for this meeting with your council is to talk about a rationale for high achievement. That's really key because without a rationale for a lofty vision, the vision tends to be painting a picture of the status quo. We're going to fight that by really talking about why academic rigor is so important before we get to visioning. And then the second part of your meeting is going to look at core convictions. We're going to look at, okay, we understand why achievement is so high. What do we believe in our heart of hearts that all kids deserve? That will be the first discussion. And then we'll go into the vision brainstorm where there will be 3 discussions that will help clarify your community's dreams for kids or your community's vision. So rationale for high achievement, that takes us kind of out of the box and will make your vision much loftier than it would be without that discussion. Then we'll talk about our core convictions. In our heart of hearts, what do we believe? And then we'll build on those core convictions to say, okay, if this is what we believe, then what does our dream look like? So, okay. So let's look at this rationale for high achievement. Now, this section is a little bit lengthy, and this section, the slides have speaker notes with them. You could actually send this part of the meeting out to your council members ahead of time and ask them to read the speaker notes for these slides before they get to your meeting. That would save you about 20 minutes, I think. So, okay, so rationale for high achievement. First of all, raising student achievement is good for kids. We know that the cumulative full-time earnings for students go up with the more education that they have. So we know that kids with a bachelor degree are going to make more money over a lifetime than kids with an associate degree or some college or just a high school diploma. In terms of unemployment, we know that unemployment rates go down with the more education that students have. In terms of retirement plans, we know that students are more likely to have a retirement plan from their employer if they have more education. Same thing with health insurance. They're more likely to have a health insurance policy provided by their employer with more education. They are less likely to be involved in public assistance programs with more education. Smoking rates go down with more education. Exercise goes up with more education. Obesity goes down with more education. The amount of time that students participate in activities with their family goes up when parents have more education. I thought that was a fascinating slide. Also, when people have more education, they're more likely to volunteer. They're more likely to vote. So there's a lot of reasons why having a higher level of education, preparing for a bachelor's degree or higher, would be a good idea for kids. And if not a bachelor's degree, some college, an associate degree, an apprenticeship program. You know, the more education students get, the different their lives may be. So so lots of benefits for kids. Now, there's also raising student achievement is good for your community's economic development. We know that employment growth is more rapid in occupations requiring higher social or analytic skills. So in terms of growing your community's economy, it is likely to grow more rapidly if we can create a situation in which there are more occupations requiring higher social and analytic skills. Now, the problem is that there's a mismatch between those jobs that require those high analytic skills and workers in the workforce who are qualified to take them. So this is a quote from that simply says there are millions of jobs going begging right now in what has got to be one of the biggest mismatches between skills and the lack of qualified help in our nation's history. So going back a couple slides, we know that the more rapidly the employment growth is in occupations that require high skills, but we don't have the workforce to fill those jobs. So in terms of looking at this another way, in looking at the TIMSS test, the Trends in International Math and Science Study, this is a study that is given worldwide to 4th graders, 8th graders, and 12th graders. There were 40 in math. There were 49 states that took that assessment, and the United States of the 49 states, 49 countries, ranked 11th. The United States ranked 11th out of the 49 countries taking the math assessment. In 8th grade, we ranked 9th. In 12th grade, out of the 9 countries that took that assessment, we were 3rd. So just barely into the top 3rd. So, if our employers in your community are looking for high-skilled workers, they may discover that it would be better to send that work to other countries electronically than to do it in your community because the skilled workers aren't there. Same thing in science and physics. In 4th grade, out of the 49 countries that took the assessment, we were 8th. 8th grade, we were also 8th, and then in 12th grade in physics, we were 2nd. So better in physics in 12th grade. Again, Singapore, Japan, those are countries that are scoring higher on these international assessments than we are. So again, if economic growth is in those high-skilled jobs and your community doesn't have a high-skilled workforce, there's that mismatch. So as you increase academic rigor of your graduates, you're actually enabling your folks who are drawing jobs and businesses to your community to have a higher skilled workforce to draw that business to your community. Also, raising student achievement is good for social justice, and actually this is what brought me to this work originally. I was concerned by enrollment levels and the difference in income level of families and the difference that made to college enrollment. And I was also very intrigued by the difference in race. So as we're raising the student achievement and closing achievement gaps or closing guidance gaps, we're also impacting these differences in enrollment rates by income level and race. So again, raising academic achievement, it's good for kids, it's good for your community's economy, and it's good for social justice. So lots of reasons why high achievement is really, really important. So how do we define high achievement? What is academic rigor? So this is a study that was done a few years ago, but I think when you talk with the business folks on your council, they will tell you that this still holds true. Employers, this was a study that was done of employers that asked them what kind of skills they were looking for in future workers. And they said that they wanted students or employees that had the ability to apply knowledge. So yes, reading, writing, math, science, but being able to apply that knowledge to decision making and problem solving. And then also applying that knowledge to critical thinking skills, being able to use that knowledge to analyze, reason, problem solve, plan, and organize. Very, higher level thinking skills. The employers also said that they wanted students with good interpersonal skills and good personal qualities, responsibility, self-discipline, flexibility. So, knowledge, applied knowledge, high academic skills, and high relationship skills. And then just workplace skills, being able to manage resources, being able to communicate, being a systems thinker, being able to use technology. So workplace skills, effective relationships, and applied knowledge. These are the high skills, skills that employers are looking for. Okay, so in terms of schools, we tend to talk about skills in terms of course titles. So, and then standards, of course. So in terms of preparing kids for a high-skilled workforce, this is our suggestion after talking to a lot of employers, that students in high school would take 4 years of math, would take 4 years of science, 4 years of English, 4 years of world languages, 4 years of social studies. So for each of the academic areas, 4 years. Then also a 4-year sequence of career and tech ed, So all students, not just the career and tech ed students, but your valedictorian, every student in the building would take a 4-year sequence in a career and tech ed area. Then all students would participate in some type of post-secondary education while they were in high school. So advanced placement, dual credit, international baccalaureate. Interestingly, when you do a standards comparison of standards in India, high school standards in India equate to our AP classes. The 12th grade standards there equate to our AP. And then, of course, PE, health, fine arts. So, and then the other thing is that we think it's really important to prepare kids for high-skilled jobs, that they do work-based learning like an apprenticeship, or in a middle school it would be job shadowing, or a worksite field trip in an elementary school, that they do service learning, and that they're doing project-based learning. And then also we think it's really important to have some kind of external verification of the rigor. It could be a test like the SAT, ACT, ASVAB, CLEP test, or it could be a work certificate, but there's somebody outside the school verifying that that student is achieving at a high level. So you'll see that some of these things, some of these courses, and some of these experiences have stars after them. The new graduation pathways that are added to the graduation requirements require these things as well. So schools will be adding these things. This is something that we've advocated for a long time, but now in the future, you know, all students will be asked to have a career and tech ed sequence and do real world applications. Okay. So I guess that's just a repeat slide. Then in terms of readiness policy, this is something that we know as educators, but I think for your community members, it's kind of important to kind of give them a heads up that we have diploma requirements, and you know, we can give them a site for where they can go to find those if they'd like to see them. And then we have standards, but now we also have this new thing, the Indiana graduation pathways. Schools will start to implement that right away. It's required in the year 2023. And here's, you know, in addition to the high school diploma, they have to demonstrate employability skills. Here's these project-based, service-based, and work-based learning. And then post-secondary ready competencies. This is where some of the testing comes in, or the external certificates. So, okay, so just, you know, this is in terms of, I'm going to go back a couple slides, in terms of the workforce, this is how they tend to express rigor. And then this is how we build that rigor into a student's educational experience through our standards and our courses. Okay, so at this point in your presentation, we'd be asking, you might ask your local economic development reps, you know, does this ring true for what you're seeing? Do we have this mismatch in our community between the skills that our manufacturers or our employers are looking for and the skills that you're seeing in new employees? And, you know, can you find skilled workers in the local workforce, and how are you handling the situation if you're not? So I think that will be a very, very rich discussion. Okay, so we're using this discussion of academic rigor to help people kind of think out of the box. Now, second part of the discussion is looking at, okay, we understand the need for rigor. What do we believe now then that all kids deserve in education? So first of all, we'll define what is a core conviction. It's the belief that we hold in our hearts about students' learning and education. And these are examples from previous schools that we've worked with. One school said that all students deserve a knowledgeable and caring adult in their life to guide them. So, and that core conviction drove that school's design process as they were putting together their school counseling program. Another conviction was all students deserve extra help when academic content on assignments confuse them. So all students deserve extra help. All students deserve engaging instruction. All students deserve to enroll in post-secondary education. And you can imagine if that's one of your core convictions, how that would impact the design of your school counseling program. All students deserve the opportunity to enroll in a rigorous curriculum. If you have prerequisites to courses that keep some students out, you know, that this may be a place where school counselors become an advocate to address some of those prerequisites. So what we want to do is to help folks understand that it's possible to watch how somebody, what someone's behaviors are, and determine what their core convictions are from watching their behavior. In other words, we can determine someone's core convictions just by watching how they act. So what we're going to do in this section is show a very engaging video from 60 Minutes. It's kind of an old video, but it's really nice. It's going to show you a school in Harlem where a vast majority of the students, like 80% of them, are going to four-year colleges after high school. And it's a public school in Harlem. So as folks watch this video, we're going to ask them to identify what they think the educators at Frederick Douglass hold in their hearts of hearts, their beliefs about learning, school, and education. So you'll show the video, and then there's a notes page where as people are watching the video, they'll jot down what they believe the core convictions of the educators are at Frederick Douglass. So after they watch the video, then and they've written down their notes during the video, then you will just do a shout out. So you're just going to throw that open-ended question out there. What do educators at Frederick Douglass Academy believe about students learning and education? And you'll say somebody can start us out, and somebody will say, you know, they believe that all kids can learn. They believe that all kids deserve respect. So yeah, or they, you know, they believe that school is important. So as they're jotting those things, as they're saying those things, you're kind of repeating them, and you know, and just letting folks know that they're heard. It's just kind of a shout out, just everybody sharing what they saw at Frederick Douglass Academy. So one thing that it might be helpful to say in this part is that we're not suggesting that your school become a Frederick Douglass Academy. This is simply an exercise in seeing if we can determine what somebody's convictions are by watching what their behaviors are. And what we're also introducing here is we're suggesting that people should live by their convictions. Okay, so then the next part is a discussion where we're going to say, in our heart of hearts, what do we believe that all students in our community deserve? We're going to look at what they deserve in terms of their expectations, guidance, and then curriculum instruction and environment. So this is our consensus building process. It's the same one we used for the benefits of school counseling. And we heard one person report that the way that they got people engaged is to have the small group discussions first, and then then go into the large group. So in your resources, there's a piece of paper where people can just think individually. That would be the individual brainstorm, where they would write down their own ideas. Then they would break into small groups and share their ideas, and then the small groups would share with the large groups. So, and then afterwards, so again, the question is, in our heart of hearts, what do we believe that all students in our community deserve? Then we use that process, and then at the end, we say, okay, folks, can you live with the ideas that we've listed here, and can you support them publicly? Okay. I'm going to stop here real quickly. Debbie, do we have any questions that have come up before I go on to the actual three vision questions?
Yes, we had an earlier question about, is the benefit statement something more formal than our brainstorming ideas? We only submitted bullet points that were discussed at our meeting. Does a concise benefit statement need to be drafted?
On the benefit statement, in all of this, the process is more important than the product. So if you, you know, came up with your benefits for each of the groups and you've got them in a list with bullets, that's fine. If you want to take that and put it into a paragraph, you know, 4 different paragraphs or 6 different paragraphs, that's fine too. So I think to save time, I would just keep them in a bulleted list. Again, in all of this, it's the process that's more important than the product on these. So, okay, really good question. Any other questions, Debbie?
Nope, that's all we have so far.
Okay, so this is the last part of the meeting. It's where the majority of the discussion is going to happen. And we've done 2 things before we get to this part of the meeting. One is that we have helped people think loftily by looking at rigor and why rigor is important. And we've hopefully have helped them have lofty dreams for kids because we know that rigor is so important. Then we've also helped folks think about, what do we believe as a community? You know, do we believe that all kids should learn? Do we believe that all kids should be enrolled in a rigorous curriculum? Do we believe that all students should have a work-based learning experience? You know, what do we believe? So, so we've looked at our beliefs, and now we're going to paint the picture of what our ideal community would look like. So I'm going to further clarify vision. This is really important. And it's really important that you do it right here rather than at the beginning. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is clarify what's the difference between a vision and a mission. So vision is a detailed description of an ideal world. It's lofty, it's bold, it's pie in the sky. It is not based in reality. It's a dream. Okay, it's if we had a magic wand and we waved it and all of our dreams could come true, what would our kids look like? What would the adults look like? What would our ideal student achievement be? A mission, on the other hand, it's a brief statement that describes the purpose of your, I'll change that, that shouldn't say coalition. It decides the purpose of your school counseling program. So the difference is that a mission statement is usually 1 sentence, and it always says that the purpose of your school counseling program is to just move you closer to that dream, to move you closer to the vision. So vision and mission are different, but they're related. Vision is the dream, where you want to go, and then your mission is to get there, to move closer to that dream. Okay, so that's vision and mission. Then vision versus goal. Those are 2 words that get really mixed up, and it can be really limiting if they do. So, okay, again, a vision is the pie in the sky. It's this painting of the ideal state. There's no restrictions. It's lofty. It's dreamy. It's just way out there. Okay, a goal is a realistic point that falls somewhere between your current situation and the vision, your dream, and goals are reachable within a stated time period. So vision and goals are different, but they're also related. The vision is the pie in the sky dream, and then the goal is the realistic step. On my way to that dream, where could I be a year from now? Where could I be 2 years from now? Those are your goals. So vision is pie in the sky, and goal is the realistic step. So now, why is vision important? The reason that vision is important is because when you're thinking pie in the sky, it makes it impossible to ever stop having goals. Before we incorporated visioning into our work, what would happen is that schools would get above state average, and they'd say, hey, we're doing pretty well. And then they lose energy for change, for improvement. When we started introducing visioning, even schools, the highest achieving schools in the state would say, yo, man, 95% of our kids are succeeding, but that's not enough because our vision is at 100%. So visioning is really, really important. Okay, so those are the differences between those terms. A couple of quotes I just threw in. You can take these out if you want to, but I love these quotes. Vision without action is but a dream. Action without vision just passes the time because we're just acting. We don't know where we're going. But when we know where we're going, when we have that vision and then we have action to it, that's what changes the world. Love that quote. It's also our process is called vision to action, and that came from this quote. Peter Senge says that without vision, there's no reason to move away from the status quo. You know, if you've won half of your basketball games and you don't have a vision of winning them all, why would you work hard to win more than half? So vision makes us move away from the status quo. Visioning causes discomfort, and it results in energy for change. If we want to win all the basketball games and we're only winning half, that makes us uncomfortable, and it makes us want to find that energy to change that situation. So love those two quotes. So the last three discussions are basically open-ended questions. What is our community's vision? So we're going to have three discussions. We're going to talk about the ideal adult practices, the ideal student practices, and the ideal student achievement. We're going to use, again, for each of those discussions, we'll use a Delphi consensus building model, starting out with an individual brainstorm, then going to small group discussion, and then large group discussion. And then the first discussion is this. So we're asking everybody to work independently, just write down their own ideas personally. In the ideal situation where adults are living by the core convictions that we just defined, when they're living by those core convictions every day, what are the adults doing? What are administrators doing, teachers doing, counselors doing, business industry, what are they doing? Community organizations, parents, what's everybody doing? If they're living by the core convictions that we just spelled out. So that's discussion one. Let me pull up here and show you the resources that will help you with this. So this is what each of your council members have when they're brainstorming their core convictions. They would do this section. And then if I scroll down, ideal adult practices, what are the administrators doing? What are the ideal teachers doing? Ideal counselors doing? Business and industry. So that's where they would jot that down. And then when it goes to the large group discussion, that would be on this poster. And adults are living by their core convictions, and here during the large group discussion and at each of the small tables when they're having the small group discussions, people would just jot down everything that's being said in these different boxes on the posters as they're being shared. Okay, so that's discussion one. Discussion two is in this ideal situation where adults are living by their core convictions every day, what are the ideal students what are they doing? We'll use the Delphi consensus building model again. So this time when people are working quietly at their seats, they'll scroll down and start describing the ideal student practices. Oops, what have I done here? Yeah, what are the ideal students doing? And then people will write that down in their document, and then as they share, you'll write that down in the middle part of the poster. Ideal situation, or ideal adults are doing these things. Or, I'm sorry, ideal students are doing these things. What are the kids' curriculum choices? What are they doing in terms of responsibility, in terms of engaging in the classroom, in terms of their physical and emotional health? Okay, and then you'll go to the third discussion, which is in an ideal situation with ideal adults and ideal students, what is our ideal student data? And at their seats individually, people will fill this out, and you will have written this, completed this first section I had it before passing out the handouts. So, oops. So you'll type in here, benchmarks, pass, ISTEP, earn all A's and B's on the report card. However it is that, whatever indicators you use for measuring achievement, you would write here. And then what you're asking your council members to do is to just, in their dream of dreams, what percentage are meeting this benchmark. So they would write that in there. Then, in terms of your poster, as they start to report out, oops, take it back here, that would be at the bottom part of the poster. And on this bottom part of the poster, again, you will have written in the benchmarks ahead of time. And you're just coming to consensus with the group on what percentage of students in the vision are meeting that benchmark. Okay, now this last part of the discussion on the benchmark, I want to give you some heads up on that. This can be a very difficult discussion. We've been with teams where there's been tears. We've been with teams where there's been major arguments about just what percentage of students should we have dreams for. So in this section, when I'm facilitating this, I like to just take one of the benchmarks. Usually I use passing I-STEP or passing algebra end of course assessment. And I'll say, okay, in our vision, what's the percentage? And I'll start out with a lower percentage, and I'll say, okay, if you had written down 50%, raise your hand. Nobody will say 50%. 60, 70, 80. A few people may raise their hands at 80%. Then I'll go, and even 70%. Then I'll go 85, 90, 95, 100. And always there will be a few people, maybe just one even, but a few, that will say 85% or 90%, and other people that say 100%. And so then I'll ask both folks to explain why they chose the percent that they selected. The people that picked 100% will say, well, this was a dream, and we have dreams for all kids. It may not be real likely that they're ever going to, pass I-STEP, but I still have a dream. That would be wonderful if they did. And then others who said 84% or 85%, they'll, come back with, well, we wanted this to be realistic, and 100% isn't realistic, so we put 85. And then you can step in and say, but remember our definition between goal and vision. A vision is, a goal is based on reality. A vision is not based on reality. And, do we have dreams for those kids? So it can be a really dicey conversation. When we first had this conversation with schools, I don't know, 30, 25 years ago, people were very leery about having dreams for African American students because they thought that African American kids hadn't had the same opportunities as white kids, and that we would just be frustrating those kids, and that we'd have a higher dropout rate and suicide rate and everything else if we had high expectations of African American kids. Well, thankfully we're past that. More recently, we've seen the same thing with special ed kids, with kids who have an IEP, and that we tend to have lower expectations of special ed kids. Well, here's the deal. If we have lower expectations for any one group of kids, I can almost guarantee that we're not going to put the resources and extra help in place that those kids need in order to achieve at a high level if we don't believe it's possible for them to achieve at a high level. So we really kind of want to think about, anytime we lower our expectations or our dreams below 100%, we're predetermining that there's a student or a group of students that will never achieve at that rate. So that we would like that to be a very rich discussion. It might be kind of dicey. If you strongly believe it should be 100%, And the council is coming to consensus at 90% because there are some students that they just don't want to have dreams for. You have to go with the council. You can speak up, but you've got to reach consensus with this one. And so if the council's consensus is, you only reach consensus at 92%, then 92% is fine over again. You can always be talking with folks later about, we really not want to not have high dreams for these kids, and try to push that a little bit. One little trick, too, that's helpful here is that if the council is set on 85%, invite them to bring papers over and write down the names of the kids who they don't have high dreams for. Who are those kids? What are their names? 15% or 10%. And I always, try to lighten it up a little bit by just saying, and then we'll just call their parents tonight and tell them, no sense sending your child to school tomorrow because we don't have dreams or hopes for him. So, but yeah, that's a really, really rich discussion. But don't feel like this has to be 100%. We know that this is a very difficult discussion, and we would hate for the council to come up with 85 and then you change it to 100. So it needs to be what the council comes to consensus on. Okay. So that's step 3. We're checking for consensus on those 3 steps, and that's it. So I'm just going to very quickly look at the online system, and then we'll close. So in the online system, I'm scrolling down to Vision. Here is the webcast that we're doing today. Although I just realized I forgot to hit the record button, so I will redo this and put up a webcast here. The information on how to facilitate council meeting 2, this will take you to the manual. Enter your vision statement. The vision statement going in is really easy. There's just a text box, we believe all students deserve, and then you'll write in your comments. It's okay to bullet there too if that's helpful to you. In our ideal school and community, ideal adult practices include, then you're writing about the ideal adults, then the ideal students, and then your ideal student achievement data. So going in the vision statement is really easy. The mission statement, this is the, remember, a mission statement is just saying that it's the intent of your program or your school or your district to move towards the vision. We just want you to upload those, so you'll enter them here. So what's your school counseling mission statement, your school's mission statement, and your district's mission statement. There's some resources here that you can download on how to write a mission statement. Entering your minutes, posting to Instagram, continuing the counselor time use log, and that's it. And then in terms of the manual, here is if I scroll down to Vision Meeting 2, here's the handouts. There's actually one more that I'll get up here, the sheet where folks are writing down their thoughts as you work through the process. So here's the handouts, here's the tools, one thing I wanted to point out, here's some vision samples. Here's vision samples, and then before and after meeting 2, that's kind of a new format for us. And oh, I see. I'm going to open that up. What this does is it gives you each of your point people. It gives you each of your point persons, and then how to get ready for council meeting 2, and then what to do after council meeting 2. So this is just all the little tasks before the meeting, all the little tasks after the meeting. And then another document that is a little different is just after you have your meeting, a plus delta, and it's just we're asking you what went well that you will continue to do in the future, and what do you plan to do differently next time. So just a kind of a thought process there. Okay, so that's it. Let's see what other questions we have, and then we can close. So Debbie, other questions? And Debbie just texted me, we are recording this, good. We remember to push that record button, wonderful. Thank you, Debbie.
Yes. No, the questions that were asked were about resources that are on the tools page, so you did cover those, and then you also covered the that they will be creating a mission statement along with their vision, so that's good.
Good. One other thing I forgot to say is on this document of how to get ready, if I scroll down, here is in the council meeting facilitation and minutes point person, here's the link where you can go to download the Lorraine Monroe videos. And let me just go to that real quickly and show you it. Let's see, control, click, oops.
It's also on their tools page, I believe, Sue.
It's going to come off of the, it's just going to be here. Well, shoot, let me just copy this, go to a different browser, copy hyperlink. Okay, so this is one of Dr. Monroe's students who's kind of created a website with a lot of materials, but you can see here are those two 60-minute segments. It's in two parts, so here's part one, here's part two. Okay, other things, other questions?
Yes, one more question is, so the council will be brainstorming the vision statement, but who is creating the mission statement?
The mission statement, it's a good question. The mission statement is the steering team. If you want to run that by your council, that's fine. If you want to involve your council, that would be fine too. We thought that the mission statement was kind of easy because it's basically just going to say that, you know, it's your plan to move towards your vision, your mission to move towards your vision. We give you in the tools that we give you, we provide a sample mission statement and also some instructions on how to write a mission statement. Pretty simple. We think the vision statement is a million times more important than a mission statement. To be honest, we're only asking for a mission statement because ASCA does. The vision statement is where we want you to spend your energy on this one. And same thing, just to not complicate things, I would just limit your council discussion to the vision. Good question. Very good question.
And then where do their benchmarks come from? The
benchmarks would come ideally out of your school improvement plan. You know, when you look at your school improvement plan and you're looking at improving achievement, you know, what are your academic goals? Is it to increase the percent passing I-STEP? Or is it, you know, increase the percentage who earn a passing score on an AP test or to graduate? You know, what are the academic benchmarks in your school improvement plan? I would use those. I say ideally because occasionally we come across a school improvement plan that doesn't have any academic benchmarks in it, but you know, that's not likely. So I would just use the academic benchmarks in your school improvement plan. Another good question. You guys are good, sharp.
That's all I have.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, everybody. So I'm eager to hear from you next month. From those of you who haven't had your first council meeting yet, you can kind of fill us in on how that went. And when those of you who are talking about vision, I'm really interested in hearing when you get to that 100% question on ideally what percentage of kids are meeting the benchmarks. I think that's going to be really interesting to hear how that question went. So, okay, thanks everybody, and good luck. Don't forget to call us when you have a a question, and Debbie will be happy to work with you. Debbie, anything else you want to add before we close?
No, I think we have it. Thank you, Sue.
Okay, thanks everyone.